Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. As you sign on, take a look at the Zoom tips that we have for you. Make sure that you have your window the way you like it. You can zoom in or zoom out or show content in full screen or partial screen. In the chat, we want to make sure that you do have your chat box open because we will be using that. Todd's going to be asking some questions. And remember to, when you do type in the chat box, make sure that you click all panelists and attendees so we all can see what you're chatting about, which I better do that now myself. And your audio settings, if you don't have computer audio, you can call in using the number that was in your email. We'll be starting in a couple more minutes. This is Dana Miller with Inspiring Solutions. Usually Michelle, she has music playing, but she's real good at, she's much better at going back and forth between windows than I am.
Michelle, she's always trying to inspire.
All right, I have 9 o'clock, so let's get started. Thank you everyone for joining us. We are so excited to have a special guest today. And I just quickly went through our Zoom tips a little bit ago, but the biggest tip that I want to make sure that everybody has is in the chat box, have that open and make sure that you have all panelists and attendees clicked. So when you do chat, we can see what you are, what you're saying. Everybody can see it. So this morning, I want to thank Todd McDonald, founder and president of ATW Training Solutions here in Des Moines, to be our July Free Friday webinar guest presenter. Todd will be presenting situational leadership. I thought being consistent with everyone was the key. The purpose of our webinars is to deliver some monthly motivation and to expose you to one of our inspiring programs and or products. And we also like to give special guests an opportunity to share their resources as we are doing today with Todd. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about the history of situational leadership, or Todd's going to talk about it. Leadership analytics.
We'll talk about it too if you want, Dana.
Well, if I could, maybe. 3 skills of a situational leader and go forward actions. You should have, I sent out this morning the Free Friday webinar scheduled, so you should have that. And when leaving the webinar, I did not get the link set up for the evaluation, but I will be sending it out with the follow-up email later today. So I know Michelle would have loved to have introduced her dear friend Todd and could.
Dana, I think we lost your audio there.
Probably share some stories.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
we
I
good?
hear you now. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, we are thankful that you're here and you could take time this Friday morning to inspire us. Todd is president of ATW Training Solutions and has been a community and business leader for over 30 years. In 1998, following a career in training and human resources, Todd founded his own training and development firm, ATW Training Solutions, Inc. ATW provides award-winning tailored training solutions to clients on a local, national, and international basis. Todd is also owner of New Horizons Computer Learning Center of Des Moines, which he will tell us more about. Welcome, Todd. Take it away.
All right. Thank you very
Give
much.
you-
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. If you can give me control, that would be
Yeah.
fantastic.
Let's
And
see.
then we'll go ahead and it looks like I got control. So we'll
Yeah.
take that off of a picture of Michelle and I about 5 or 6 years ago with it, because I think we would probably all, I don't know, I guess maybe we get, I always look at my glasses style to see how old I was at the time. With it, but thanks for the introduction, Dana, and appreciate that. And Michelle and I conversed a little bit via text this morning, and she's busy today, so I appreciate the opportunity to kind of pinch hit and jump in for her a little bit. Thanks everybody. I love these Friday morning sessions. It always seems like it's a little bit more relaxed on Friday morning. I know I've got about 25 or 30 minutes with you here this morning to talk to you a little bit about situational leadership, and I'm looking forward to that. Just some brief background on our organization, just to give you an idea of why you should be listening to me and who I am and who our organization is. As Dana said, I own two organizations, ATW Training Solutions and then New Horizons Computer Learning Center here in Des Moines. We have about 15 staff members. And prior to COVID-19, last year we did about 800 training sessions here in the Midwest, across the United States, and some of a global nature. We provide training via virtual, like we're doing here today, as well as face-to-face, and we do some custom design. We've got a great team that's been working together for about 21 years. We have over 100 years of experience, and one of the things that I really appreciate about Michelle and Inspiring Solutions is we have some of the same values, and that is we're really focused in on helping organizations and people unleash their human potential. We believe that if you can hire the right people, if you can train the right people, and you can retain the right people, not only is your organization going to be more successful, but everybody's going to really enjoy the culture. And that's why I want to share some thoughts and ideas about situational leadership today. Personally, prior to opening my organization 21 years ago, I was an HR and training professional in both the global manufacturing industry and financial services. So I want to be able to share some thoughts and ideas with you there. In between, I worked at a company called American Media, where we produce training videos and products, and we had products in 72 countries and 29 different languages. And I share that with you because that leads into where do I want to go today with Ken Blanchard and this idea of situational leadership, because that's where I had an opportunity to meet Ken. And you'll see here where we talk about, and you'll see in this upper hand logo, SL2. And there's a story behind SL2, but I think probably the thing that most people are familiar with is the term situational leadership. So I'm going to ask you to chat a couple things today. I just shared a little bit about myself. I'd love you to just go to the chat area, if you would, and just chat in there. Where are you joining from here this morning? And tell me whether you've had any background in this situational leadership training that what we're talking about here today. So if you could just add that in, I'd really appreciate it. It gives me an idea of who I've got on the line, and as well as maybe some of your experience there. So I'll monitor that chat. Dana will monitor that chat as well, as I kind of go into the history of situational leadership. So the term has been out there for quite a while. It actually started back, it really been thought of, when it first came out, it was called the management of organizational behavior. And that was a model created by Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard. And so this is kind of where we're getting into that history of things. And it was created back in the late 1960s, believe it or not, back in 1969. It went on to be known as the life cycle theory of leadership. And then in the mid 70s, that's when it was really named situational leadership theory. And so a lot of people, will say, at this point in my presentation, will say, well, gosh, that was 50 years ago. Is it still valid today? And I will tell you, absolutely. If I had an opportunity to, I've always told people that if somebody told me I had to start my organization all over again, and you could only have 2 or 3 products, and you couldn't have, a lot of products, but you could only have 2 or 3, which 2 or 3 you're going to pick? It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that island thing. If you were stranded on an island, what would you pick? Well, if I was stranded in a training session and it was for leaders, this would be my pick. I'll share more information about that a little bit later. And so that was kind of the history of that and where it came up into the 1970s. And then in the 1970s and early 80s, Hersey and Blanchard, they had pinned this model together, as a collaborative venture. And what they both did at that point is they both went out and opened up their consulting businesses, and then just kind of diverged. And both of them kind of took the model and kept on working with it. And with that, the Blanchards, Ken has really updated the model. I have the opportunity to be on one of their councils, so I meet with them, a couple times a year, and just saw him a couple months ago. He's doing well, but that's where this SL2 concept comes in. And so really, when we think about SL2, it's all about being the leader that your people need. The fundamental principle of situational leadership is that there's no single best style of leadership. Effective leadership really comes down to, what is most task relevant, and most successful leaders are those who adapt their leadership style to the person that they're leading in relation to the task that you're asking them to do. And that's probably the most important, thing to keep in mind. Bottom line, that there is no one best leadership style. A lot of people will go out and say, well, what kind of leader are you? Are you a very hands-on leader? You're a hands-off leader? What kind of leader are you? And the idea is that there is no one best leadership style. The best leadership style is that which is best for the person you're leading in relation to the goal or task you're asking them to accomplish. And I'll dig into that just a little bit more as we get through. But that's kind of the history of situational leadership, and Blanchards continue to really update the product, brand new things that have come out. And so I've just really enjoyed working with this program over time. So going back and kind of looking at our chat here, looks like we've got some people here from Guthrie Center. Wanda, welcome. I used to live out in the Stewart area, so I know Guthrie Center very well. We got some people up in central Minnesota. That's fantastic. Rhonda is up from Ames, has read the situational book and leads a team of college students. That's fantastic. And Kim, hey, great to hear from you again. But I think Kim is kind of a person that a lot of people, a category falls into, that they've heard about situational leadership, but they don't have a lot of the awareness of it. And so that's what I hope to do today, is to give you some of those type of things. And then we've got a few others in, and it looks like we have somebody from California. So Tracy's got up early this morning, and great to have her on, and some others. And so I can't go through all of them, but it looks like and we even have some people, Lori, that has done some business with us, and that's fantastic. So welcome everybody, and I look forward to sharing some more thoughts and ideas. So let's continue on here. When you think about leadership and the impact that leadership has had, and we've all had good bosses, and we've all had bad bosses, and we know that a bad boss really has an impact on attitudes and behaviors, and really the performance of our team members. When you have a bad boss, a lot of statistics, and these statistics come from the Ken Blanchard companies, but 32% of an organization's turnover can be avoided through better leadership styles. So when you've got that bad boss, unfortunately, what it runs into is that higher turnover. You've got lower engagement, you've got lower productivity, and ultimately what it comes down to is just poor results. That bad leadership, poor leadership costs the typical organization as much as, in some cases, 7% of their annual sales. And some of you, and I recognize some of your names on the list of people that are attended, as well as I do, when we go in and work with organizations, that it can be much higher, than that 7%, as well. So, really the idea is that, are people really, are our managers meeting the needs of their people? Are we meeting their individuals where they are and giving them the type of guidance that they need? And research shows that people need different levels of direction and support, depending upon, and these are two words that we're going to talk about quite often here over the next 20 minutes or so, and that is confidence and commitment, because that's what it's all built around, is what is the confidence level of the person, and then what is the commitment level of the person. And that's what I love about this model, is that it works into both of those areas. But the problem is, as we say there on the slide, the problem is that most managers have only one leadership style. And they may be focused a little bit too much on competence, when really what they need to be focusing on is commitment, or vice versa, depending upon where they feel most comfortable. And that's what situational leadership was all about, because one size doesn't fit all. Okay? So when you think about it, an important piece of the puzzle is really helping the leaders adapt to the different situations. And that's what we do, here almost on a weekly basis. We use this program. In the research that we've helped to do a little bit, and then this research also came out from McKinsey, is that 54% of leaders use only one leadership style regardless of the situation. What's interesting is when I'll share my personal story, when I really, I was a younger leader, and I was looking at it, and I was really focused in on that one leadership style because I thought that was what was expected of me. And my eyes started to open up when I started to look at it and see, why is it that some of the people that I'm trying to lead are not doing the things that I want them to do? And why are they upset with the way that I'm leading? Because I wasn't providing the leadership style. I wasn't using the leadership style that they needed in the situation. And so we really want to look at and understand that one size doesn't fit all. And that's why we term this situational leader, because situational leaders give their people what they need when they need it. And when you do that, you're going to help them to develop faster. They're going to help them to be more productive. You're going to have to help them to be more passionate in the workplace. And whether you're talking about the face-to-face people that you're leading, as well as we're all into this remote workforce and some things now, these things all help to accelerate people's development. And that's the key thing here, is we want them to become, and I'll use the term here a little bit, self-reliant achievers as fast as they can. So we can accelerate that process. We can improve their productivity and performance. We can increase the engagement, and you can create proactive problem solvers. And I would think that any of us that are managers, any of us that are leaders, any of us that are HR, professionals, we look at those four things and say, that would be the holy grail there if we could do some of those things. So that's what we really want to do. So the model itself, just a little bit of background on it. SL2, again, I said, back in the 70s and 80s, Paul and Ken kind of split off and both kind of did their own things. SL2 is the most widely taught leadership model in the world, used to train more than 5 million managers. And so it's still an extremely, it's still the #1, taught leadership program in the world at this point. It's been validated and it's impactful, within the organizations. And it's good because it makes things happen. This is the model. When you think about it and you look at the model here, this is the model that most people probably look at and say, hey, I've seen that before. And that's the great thing, because people see this and they remember it. I can't tell you how many training sessions that I've done where I look at it and say, okay, hey, this is the model. People say, well, yeah, I've seen that. And then later on down the road, as I teach them more and they learn it more, and then I go back in a couple months, they're still using the language. It's easy to understand, it's easy to remember, and it's kind of that easy to use framework. And one of the things that Ken talked to me, and again, I've had an opportunity to, work with him a little bit more one-on-one. One of the things he said is, he told me one time, he said, Todd, this could also be called just situational coaching, because really it promotes high quality conversations, and it helps you to help a person look at where they are, how their performance is working, and how their development is. So we're going to dig into this. We're going to dig into this model here just a little bit. So I'm going to kind of check my time here, because if anything, my issue is that, and I'm right on time. My issue is that, when we do this training, in some cases we take 2 days to do it. And Michelle said, well, can you do it in about 27 minutes? And so I'm giving that a shot today. But as we look further, at the model, there's 3 skills to being a situational leader. And I want to talk about each one of those 3 skills, give you some background into it, because I think there are things that immediately you can just take these concepts and go out and utilize them immediately. Obviously, there's more information, there's books, there's training sessions and things you can get into. But when if you want to become a situational leader, if you want the people that you're influencing to become a situational leader, you look at the 3 skills. The first skill is goal setting. And goal setting is all about getting alignment on what needs to be done and by when. Okay. And this is not, let's keep in mind that this is not about just, hey, here's what I want you to do in your position from a broad picture. This is about going to a person and saying, hey, there are 4 or 5 major goals that I want you to accomplish, in your position. Let's get alignment on those. And then let's go to that second level and let's think about diagnosing and assessing someone's competence and commitment on a specific goal or task. Because if you go to them and you talk to them and say, okay, here's 4 or 5, specific goals that I have for you in your position, whether that's in a performance review, whether that's in a one-on-one coaching conversation, whatever that is, you set the goals, but then you got to look at it and say, where is this person in relation to that goal? Okay, what is their competence in that specific goal, and what is their commitment on that specific goal or task? And keep in mind that, if you give them 4 or 5 goals, in some of them, their competence may be very high and their commitment could be low. In others, their competence could be low, but their commitment and their excitement level in it is very high. And so I go back to that term, the best leadership style is best for the person you're leading in relation to the goal or task you're asking them to achieve. So at one point, a person may have, be in one diagnosis level, and I'll get into that here in a little bit more, but in another goal, they might be a little bit lower. So it's that diagnosing side of things. And then finally, if you set good goals, if you have diagnosed their developmental level, then it's up to you to match and to provide the most appropriate leadership style. Okay, so let's think a little bit about this. Let's go through these 3. So in goal setting, we use the SMART, and most of us probably on this line have seen, the SMART, the SMART acronym as it relates to goal setting. Now, the one thing that I will tell you that is a little bit different about, the approach that we take in situational leadership is the M. Specific, we've all heard about that. M is usually still, stood for measurement. In situational leadership, we changed the model a little bit to talk about motivating. Okay, the M is for motivating and answers the question, am I excited and interested in this goal? Because in the past, when you think back to the old SMART acronym, it really doesn't talk about motivation or their commitment to being able to do the job. So with the M, that's important because depending upon a person's interest or motivation to work on that specific goal, managers may need to show them how to do it differently. Okay, that's really kind of the arts of situational leadership, is meeting them where they're at. So with goal setting, it's specific. Okay, what exactly is the goal or task, and what does it look like? Is it motivating? Am I excited and interested in this goal? Is it attainable? Is it relevant? And is it trackable? Okay, so we go back a little bit to school with the leaders as we're taking them through this and say, okay, how are you with the SMART acronym? Right? Now we go to the second skill of a situational leader, and that's diagnosing. And we call this the development cycle. And as we've for 50 years, this program has looked at, and the research has shown that people go through 4 distinct stages of development when they're learning a task. Okay, they're going to go through what we call the D1 level, and that's where the person has low competence, but they have high commitment. I'm going to give you an example of this here in just a second. D2 is low to some competence, low commitment. D3 and D4. Now, ultimately, when you think about all of these, when we talk about the D1, where they have low competence and high commitment, we call these people enthusiastic beginners. And I'm going to use an analogy of teaching. A friend of mine, I happened to look at something last night, and they had posted, they were teaching their daughter to ride a bike. So let's think about riding a bike and where a child might be. At the beginning, they see all their friends out riding that bike. And all they can think about is, boy, if I could ride that bike, I could have the freedom, I could have the fun, I could do those type of things. Very high commitment. They're an enthusiastic beginner, but they don't know how to ride a bike. So enthusiastic beginner, low competence, high commitment. This might be a new person to your organization or somebody going into a new organization or a new position. As they progress and think about that person, they get on the bike. Okay, they get on the bike. You push them out there a little bit, and they start to gain maybe a little bit of confidence. But what happens typically when you're teaching someone to ride a bike? Well, unfortunately they fall over sometimes, and they might skin a knee or something like that. And all of a sudden, they're not as excited about this as they once were, because my knee kind of hurts right now. So we call them the disillusioned learner, where they're starting to learn a little bit, but now their commitment is starting to wane a little bit. Okay? And then you have the D3. And so finally, if you can convince that child to get back on the bike, hey, let's give it more of a try, and all of a sudden they get a little bit better. They're still out there, and they might be a little bit shaky, when they're riding their bike, and maybe turning the corners is not as smooth as you'd like to see it, but they're starting to gain, some confidence, moderate to high, and now all of a sudden, this might be okay, to get out here and spend more time trying to do. And then finally, you get them to be the D4. They've learned to ride the bike. Now they're going no hands, and their feet are out, and they're running through mud puddles and all that kind of stuff, because they've developed the competence and they're enjoying going out and doing what they're wanting to do. And, the ultimate goal that we want in our organizations and with everybody in our organizations is we want to help people move from being a D1 to a D4. And if we can first diagnose, where they're at, then we can start to prescribe, the cycle that we're the leadership style that we need to accomplish. So that takes us to, so if we can diagnose where they're at, where they at on their competence level and where are they at on their commitment level, that leads us then into looking at looking at the leadership styles, because it's important to understand that when you think about it, D1 individuals in an organization, their contribution to an organization is usually kind of negative, because, hey, they might be excited about it, but they're not accomplishing a lot. And it starts to go up a little bit with D2, because they start to develop, some of the styles and the skills and things that they need. But again, their commitment level is a little bit lower. And really, when an individual starts to contribute in an organization, is that they have that goal or task that you're asking them to do. When they start to get to those high to moderate skills, and they got that variable commitment, all of a sudden they're starting to contribute to the organization. And then finally, when they get to the D4, that's really where we want people to be. So as a leader, as a manager, as an HR professional, we're trying to push them and get them as fast as we can to that D4 level. Okay, so that's where we come into our third skill, and that is matching, the 4 leadership styles. And so if we look at, down here, our D1, our D1 has low competence and high commitment. So what do you need to do? What kind of leadership style do you need to do? We would call this the directing style. And that's where you need to be more highly directive, but you don't need to put in as much support. Okay, so you're more directive because they don't know the job, they have low competence, so you're more directive, and you don't worry as much on the commitment side because they're bringing the enthusiasm, into it. So if you match and give them the right leadership style, if you give them the S1 leadership style with your D4 contributor, you're matching their leadership style. Okay, and in D2, we got the low to some competence, so again, you're going to be highly directive. But then also, because of the low commitment, you got to be very supportive with them. And we call this the coaching quadrant. And then you go over into the S3 quadrant, which matches up with your D3. And remember, in D3, we've got moderate to high competence and variable commitment. So at this point, you're starting to see, well, okay, if they've got high to moderate to high, I now can back off on being highly directive. I don't need to tell them how to do their job. I just need to be supportive. I need to support them and help them, with that commitment level. And then ultimately, if we go back into, and ultimately go into the 4th quadrant, S4, we call this the delegating. It's high commitment, high competence. So you can back off and go back to be more, low support and low direction. Now, keep in mind, I don't say no support and no direction, because everybody needs a leadership style. but now you can let them go out and do their job and help them and focus in on helping them to be successful. So that's situational leadership. And you know, I'm looking at my clock now and saying we're 28 minutes into this, and I know I could talk much further about it. But I think the key thing that you need to ask your organization is, what could your company accomplish if you had more people performing those critical skills and tasks at that D4 level? And it goes back to those 3 skills. Are you setting the SMART goals? Are you diagnosing that person's competence and commitment as it relates to the specific goal or task you're asking them to accomplish? And then are you going back and matching that leadership style? So I'm going to turn it back over to Dana here in just a second. But if anybody does want to talk further, I know some of you are located here. Some of you are obviously out in other states and some things. I'd love to talk with you a little bit further. We do offer live in-person training, 2 days, 1 days, some self-study things. We do have live virtual sessions that we're doing quite often. We've got online, on-demand e-learning that you can do. And then there's also just some of these little clicks that we offer of just videos and tools and some micro activities. And I hope what I've been able to do today is give you just a taste of what situational leadership is. It's a fantastic program that can really make an impact on organizations. So if you want to talk further, give me a call, reach out to Michelle, reach out to Dana. They can put you in touch with me. I put my contact information up there. And one of the things that I'll do too is if anybody wants to send me an email, so if everybody just looks and it's todd@atwtraining.com, and you can look me up on LinkedIn and some other things as well. But if you do, I'll send you out one of my books. I did a book called I Wish My Manager Would Just, and it's research that I did on what is it that employees want from managers. And it's not only the right leadership style, but it's sharing the right information and doing a lot of other things that fit in to this model. So Dana, that's my quick review on situational leadership. I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Todd. It was very informational. I had never heard of situational leadership, so it was fun to learn about it. And I love the learning how to ride a bike analogy. That was, everybody can relate to that.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So everybody should have a copy of the Free Friday webinar handout that I sent, and we want you to invite others to watch with you. Next month we have Staying Positive in a Changing World. Michelle will be presenting that one. September 18th we have guest presenters Kim Gratney and Cindy Cool. They'll be talking about business relationships transformed. And October 16th, another guest presenter, Thea Ducro, and she's going to be talking about walking in wonder, cultivating creativity for results. We're very excited. We have something new. It's a showcase, and you'll be receiving an email invite on this, but it's Thursday, July 30th, and it's called Company Culture. It's not a game unless it is. And we have Stephanie Angelo from Arizona. She's created this game. It's an actual game. So we're going to be able to experience it virtually. So we do have limited seating. There's 2 time options available, 9:45 or 11 o'clock. And like I said, I'm going to be sending out emails on that soon. We do appreciate your feedback. It helps us with upcoming webinars. And I did forget to attach the evaluation to the webinar when you leave, so I will send out a link to it with the follow-up email. With that, we want to thank Todd and thank you for joining us, and have yourself a great weekend.
Okay, thanks everybody.